Welcome, everyone. I'm Greg Morgan. This is Talk to the Insurance Experts, or Talk to the Experts, whichever way you want. I'm Greg. I've got with me today Patrick Bonk, manager and commercial broker, and insurance broker Dave Arnold from Campbell and Haliburton Insurance. Welcome, gentlemen, to you both.
Hello, thank you.
Good
Thanks
to see
for
you again.
being here. All right, we got a theme today. It's business insurance, and I have to admit, I know nothing about business insurance, so I'm excited, Patrick, for you to kind of lead us there. So what is business insurance and who needs it?
Business insurance is for anybody that provides a product or a service, especially when you start receiving compensation for them. That would be a great time to, if you're engaged in that, to speak to the broker to who you deal with.
So what are the more common forms of commercial insurance there?
Well, within commercial insurance, you're probably going to want to, when you're engaged in the business, you'll have like property, like your contents or maybe stock, or if you have a building that needs insurance, those would be the property components of your commercial insurance policy. But the other pillar of insurance is liability, or commercial general liability, commonly known as CGL.
That's a real key component. That's that liability. That's CGL.
Yeah, and liability is a little bit more of a less tangible thing, because we know the property, you can touch it, you can feel it, you're sitting in it, it's keeping you warm. The liability is protection for bodily injury and property damage that you might cause in the course of your business to others. So we're becoming a more litigious society. People, have the coffee spilled on them and then they want to sue, but that's where your liability insurance comes in. That's a bodily injury situation where your liability insurance would respond in that case. So it's in so long as your insurance policy for your commercial insurance has those operations are described, then that's what you would be covered for by your insurer.
So there's a lot of different ways to qualify through this too, right? Like the qualifications differ depending on what you're looking for here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like your qualifications would be reviewed by an underwriter. So if you come to see me and you have a business and you would want insurance coverage, we would have a conversation and we would talk about the information about what you do and the details about your property. And when we have those collected, I would create a submission. We would talk about your coverage. And then I would take that and I would send it on to the insurance markets for their consideration.
So Dave, it sounds like you really want to, before you visit, have perhaps a little paperwork in order, and there's a little preparation to this too, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, because with personal lines, which is really what I do, which would be home, tenant, condo, it tends to be more, I want to say cookie cutter in a sense that how many square feet, what's the address, what kind of coverages do you want, boom, and you can get a quote. Whereas on the commercial side, because every business is so unique and so different, each application that you send in actually gets reviewed by an underwriter. And a lot of times those underwriters, even though you think you may have included everything that you should, like here's what I do and here's where I go and here's my gross annual revenue or whatever other information you're giving to your broker, the underwriter may come back after the request for a quote has been submitted and say, yeah, can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me more about this? So I would say, Patrick, you correct me if I'm wrong, I would say the commercial side of it is much more individualized, much more tailored to each individual business's need, and there's more moving parts. I would say.
Yeah, and Dave, you brought up a good point about personal lines insurance. It's often focused on our homes, our tenant packs, our things we do day to day. With your commercial business or policies, there's any number of businesses that could qualify for insurance or that you might need insurance for well above and beyond like a home. I often say a home is a home, but a business can be many things. It can be you're a professional that works from home. It could mean that you are a building owner. It could mean that you have a restaurant. Any number of things.
And one thing I find about Campbell and Haliburton, as I am a customer and I'm just my personal needs, you guys are always looking for the best coverage for me. And in this particular, in business insurance too, I assume it's the same. There's not just one price fits all. You're constantly monitoring what my needs are if I'm looking for business insurance and getting the best deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it is important that as a client, we have a conversation. I'll ask you about your insurance needs, and we'll make recommendations. We'll have those moments where we gather information, the particulars of your business, the details of the building that you are running your business out of, the operations of what you do day to day, and what revenues you would stand to earn from that. And then the reason for that is the insurance companies often will, if you're doing a business and you're earning 100,000 versus a business that's earning 1 million, there's a greater exposure to them. So that's how they often.
So really, no office is too small or large to investigate this.
Yes.
Right?
No. Anytime that you're doing something, there is an opportunity where you could cause bodily injury or property damage to your clients. So you want to protect yourself. You don't want to be in a situation where you want to buy the right insurance so that your policy will respond for those unforeseen times.
And you would think right away as I listen, well, how much is this going to cost me if I'm a business owner? But everyone's got different tailored needs. So you can't probably answer that too easily. We'd have to have a discussion first, right?
Yeah, I don't want to stick my neck out that far.
But it is. It's about how much liability you need as a business.
Exactly. And kind of going back to what I had just said, the type of work that you do, we, let's say, I'll use that example as a welder, would have maybe a greater exposure to causing damage to a building than, say, a grocer. Yeah. So those premiums that are provided by the insurance companies reflect the risk.
Yeah. It could be more expensive to insure a fireworks factory than it is a bookstore.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. And just knowing how much I need to be insured for is a big question, though, too.
Yeah, and that's where we would have a conversation, too. Like I often, if you have property elements, you probably want to insure them as for a replacement cost. You have to think, if you have to start from scratch and I have to buy new equipment, well, what is that going to cost? And as far as liability goes, that's kind of a more, we talk about intangibles, but we have a discussion, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? And we want to make sure that we're talking about limits and coverage that is appropriate for that.
A lot of times people will go, oh, I'm trying to put in a bid for something, and they tell me I need liability. And that's kind of the first time a lot of people will twig in that, oh, I need to get some insurance here. So that could be a trigger for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm with Dave Arnold, Patrick Bonk from Campbell Haliburton Insurance, and we're into business insurance right now. And I do have to take a break. And as we continue our conversation, I honestly want to get into the facts of how you even review your commercial insurance needs and what's included with everything. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with Talk to the Experts. Again, don't go far. If you want more information at any time, I want you to go to myCH.ca. Campbell Haliburton. We're on business insurance today. Don't go far. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talk to the Experts. Today it's with the insurance experts. I'm Greg Morgan. Alongside of me is Dave Arnold from Campbell Haliburton, an insurance broker himself, and Patrick Bonk, manager and commercial broker and insurance broker himself as well with Campbell Haliburton. Gentlemen, it's nice to have you both here. We've been talking about business insurance. And maybe, Dave, I'll start with you. Those of you that are just joining us right now, business insurance can be a little overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be, really, does it?
No, and I think it's interesting because Patrick was making some great points here, and this is so happy to have him in here because he is our expert. But people a lot of times don't realize, okay, do I need business insurance? And yes, I do. And what does it cover? And I mean, those are some basic questions for people who are, either have just started their own business or are looking to. And there's a lot of questions, that we need to be asked and answered. And, typically if you are earning $1 from a business or commercial venture, you should have some commercial insurance.
And everyone has different tailored means, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a good thing to bring up as well is that if you're in the thought process, not 99% of the way, but say you're even 5 or 25% of the way thinking about this business that you've dreamed about, it's a good idea to talk to your insurance broker, and you can have those conversations because it's often easier to find out what you need and have the time to have to work towards that insurance policy so that it's ready for you day one, as opposed to having the lease assigned and so on and so forth, and then as an afterthought we have to have that commercial insurance in place, and And then it gets to be the timing isn't always ideal. So it's always good to have those conversations and those thoughts early in the process.
And obviously, you want every business you work with to be successful. And to be successful, it's a team effort, right?
Yeah, exactly. And success of your business can rely or depend on your quality of insurance. Do you have coverage for loss of rents or loss of revenues in the event of a loss? If you had a fire, even if it's a partial loss, it might take several months for your business to get back up on its feet. We want to look at providing those coverages for you, so to have that to least disruption to you as possible, so you can survive these events, as opposed to have them, take you out early.
Patrick Bach, Dave Arnold with me on Talk to the Experts, business insurance. Now, a bit of an overview there of if you're just starting out as a business, but what about the business listening to you right now? How do they know where to begin to review what they have and what they should maybe relook at or go back and say, hey, am I covered at all bases there?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Often, I'm sure a lot of people that are listening already have commercial insurance, business insurance, and if you do so, it's easy to go sometimes year after year and not think about it.
Yeah.
And as your business grows, so do your revenues, and so do your operations, so do your assets. All those things could potentially change. So anytime you have a change in your business, be it like, oh, I added a new building, or hey, I'm a contractor and now I'm adding snow removal. Even before you start engaging in those changes, it's an excellent time to reach out to your insurance broker, have those discussions, and get on top of them early. Because in reality, every time that your policy does change, you will, every time your policy changes, you will need to
update
talk
the
to a broker.
Because
Because the insurers will need to know these things.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if your business has changed in the previous year, you should talk to your broker to make sure that
it's like personal insurance, Dave,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You got to update yearly, don't you?
Yeah, you want to review it yearly. And I mean, even if it's an ongoing process, we added a piece of equipment. Oh, we're actually doing this now. As you said, someone's starting to do snow removal. That's something you need to have factored in to your business insurance. And you can make those changes partway through the year. You don't have to wait until renewal. If something's changed, something is different, talk to your broker.
Yeah, it is important to review your documentation too, because it very much specifies your property, the limits, the liability that is there, the limits surrounding your liability pertains to the operations that you're engaged in. So if you have a restaurant, your operations are going to be surrounding a restaurant. If you're a contractor, maybe you're a general contractor, maybe you're a specialist in a certain discipline, and perhaps you have multiple operations, and each one of those will be factored into your insurance.
Well, and to go with that, you're talking about, depending on your needs and liability-only policies, it's important to know, too, maybe even if your business has, for instance, an automobile or a vehicle of some sort, you don't want to be left at risk there.
Yeah, exactly. It's often one of the components of commercial insurance that isn't always thought about. If you had a business, and I always like bringing up the restaurants here, because if you have a delivery service, you might have a car or a truck or something to engage in that portion of your business, and you want to make sure that your insurance is correct, that your plate insurance is correct, that you have extension insurance, or at least consider it. It's good to have those conversations with your broker, and they can review your review your auto coverage, and make sure the coverage you have is appropriate for the business that you are engaged in.
Patrick Bach, Dave Arnold with me here from Campbell and Haliburton, and we are talking about business insurance. And we can't talk about insurance and feeling protected without talking about the world of cyber that we're living in here right now. And when it comes down to it, is there coverage? Cyber insurance? Is that such a thing?
Yes, there is. That is very much an emerging risk in the insurance world, especially in the last several years. And we've all heard news reports of cyber attacks, hacks, privacy breaches. They're rampant. And we often hear about the larger companies, but we don't often hear about the smaller instances. And they're happening in our community right now. And if I could leave one piece of information from this this interview, this talk to the experts, is that talk to your broker about cyber insurance, because there is a lot of components, especially if you have a lot of a computer, a lot of infrastructure along those lines. You could be at risk from cyber attacks, hacking, ransomware, and there is coverages available for those things.
Really?
Yes,
For ransomware?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we never have to find those things out, but it's better to have the coverage in place for those circumstances than to not.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, I think one of the things to keep in mind, are you keeping any personal information or data about your clients or the businesses that you interact with on your computer systems? Because potentially then you've got some exposure in terms of the liability if you were to be hacked, if there were ransomware. Is that accurate, Patrick?
Yeah, that is exactly
Well, it's such
right.
a good point for the small businesses that we're trying to
exactly.
remind you that you've got to assess your needs. That's a big assessment.
Yeah, and those are where, when we meet with our clients, that we have those discussions, those conversations, and find out if there is an exposure. And the world is definitely going more technological than it ever has before.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know how many years I've been a client of Campbell and Haliburton Insurance, but it's mind blowing, isn't it, Dave? How insurance has changed over the years. You really have to analyze and continually. I don't even think you wait a year. You almost want to do it as just a guy like me. Probably every 6 months is probably when I look into a few questions, but at least yearly. But this as a business too, you really got to be on top of it.
Yeah, I would say so, and I think sometimes people who are running their businesses, they're running their businesses. That's what they're doing. They're not necessarily kind of doing that bird's eye view. Okay, where am I at? What am I doing? Oh, we just changed this. I need to do this, this, and this. And I think that gets missed sometimes.
Well, this has been a good discussion about business insurance. Anything overall that, you have our last minute here, Patrick, that you would say to anyone?
I would just encourage you to, if you're, like I said earlier in our conversation, if you are even thinking about a business, we are there for you to talk about your insurance needs. And hopefully, even if you don't engage in that business, you'll walk away being a little bit more educated in that.
Well, you've certainly educated us here, and there's a big comfort level when you step into Campbell and Haliburton. I know that firsthand. Dave?
Yes, sir.
You get the last word. Why not?
Bad news.
Where should we hook up for all this information?
I just want to say, go to our website, mych.ca. Patrick Bonk, by the way, our manager in commercial, who's been just great. He's a wizard in commercial.
Well, you need a wizard when it comes to this.
So if you're looking for the wizard, come say hi.
All right. If you need a wizard, this is it. Campbell and Haliburton Insurance. Thank you both, gentlemen. I appreciate your time here. You've been listening to Talk to the Experts. I'm Greg Morgan. Again, hit up that website, mych.ca.